There is a version of McLaren that everyone knows. The trophies, the legends, the numbers that look untouchable. But there is another McLaren, one that lived in constant tension, one that survived not because it was comfortable, but because it refused to break. This is not a story about victories. It's a story about pressure. Because no team in Formula One carried the weight of perfection the way McLaren did. From the moment you walked into the McLaren Technology Center, you felt it. The silence, the symmetry, the sense that mistakes were not just errors, they were personal failures. Ron Dennis didn't build a racing team. He built a system, and systems don't forgive instability. In the late 90s and early 2000s, McLaren stood at the center of Formula One's most brutal era. Ferrari was rising, Williams had fallen, and McLaren was expected to be flawless. Every year, every race, every lap, the partnership with Mercedes brought power, prestige, and expectation. But it also brought pressure that no press release ever mentioned. Because when two giants work together, someone is always watching the other, silently measuring who is pulling their weight. Drivers felt it immediately. Mika Hakkinen carried the calm of a champion, but behind that calm was exhaustion. He wasn't just racing Ferrari. He was racing the idea that McLaren could never be second. When reliability failed, it wasn't just a DNF. It was a crisis. Engineers stayed late, knowing that one failed component could cost them more than a race. It could cost them trust. And then came the next generation. Kimi Räikkönen arrived as raw talent, barely experienced, thrown into an environment that demanded perfection from day one. There was no patience, only expectation. He was fast, sometimes terrifyingly fast. But the car wasn't always ready. And when a driver like Kimi feels held back, silence becomes dangerous. Inside McLaren, disagreements didn't explode. They froze. Decisions were made behind closed doors. Strategy calls were defended with data, not emotion. And yet, the emotion never disappeared. It just hid. The early 2000s were filled with almost seasons. Cars fast enough to win. Drivers capable of championships. And outcomes that slipped away by inches. And every time it happened, the same question echoed through the corridors of Woking. What did we miss? By the time Fernando Alonso arrived in 2007, the tension was already built into the walls. McLaren didn't just sign a champion. They signed a challenge to their own structure. And then they paired him with a rookie named Lewis Hamilton. What followed wasn't chaos, it was controlled combustion. Two drivers, one team, equal status on paper, unequal reality in execution. Alonso expected hierarchy. Hamilton brought speed and fearlessness, and McLaren tried to hold the line. But Formula One doesn't reward balance. It rewards advantage. Small decisions started to matter more than they should. Strategy calls, fuel loads, qualifying timing, and slowly trust eroded. Not publicly, internally. What the world remembers as the Spygate season was, for McLaren, something far more damaging than penalties or fines. It was a fracture, because when scrutiny increases, paranoia follows. Every conversation felt recorded. Every decision felt political. And inside that pressure cooker, the team lost something it never officially admitted losing. Unity. The fallout reshaped McLaren for years. Drivers left. Leadership changed. The philosophy remained, but the confidence cracked. And then came the long rebuild. Years where McLaren fought not for championships but relevance. Honda returned with promises of glory. What arrived instead was frustration, reliability failures, and public humiliation. Drivers apologized on the radio. Engineers stared at data they couldn't fix fast enough. And yet, McLaren survived. Because survival, not dominance, became the goal. Until a new generation arrived. New leadership, new culture, and drivers who understood that McLaren's past could inspire, but not save, the future. Lando Norris grew up inside that transformation. A driver shaped by lessons McLaren learned the hard way. Less control, more trust, less fear of mistakes, more focus on growth. And slowly, the team began to breathe again. McLaren's real story isn't about eras of dominance. It's about resilience, about how a team obsessed with perfection learned that survival sometimes matters more than control. That's the story Netflix never really told. And once you understand it, you realize McLaren didn't lose its way, paid the price of carrying history,